Hi everybody, welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. As usual, I got Mark Keohane. Hey Mark, how you bud?
Good, how are you, Kev?
Tidy. A few things to talk about today. Western Province being courted by a millionaire wanting to invest, was it $4 to $6 million for 51% control?
Yeah, it always looks a lot better in rands. 100 million rand. It's Durban-born, based in the States, investor. I don't see it happening.
No.
Already they've said...
Why?
Well, because they won't give up control. That's been the big problem with Western Province and with the big, strong club structure for the last decade. That's why top South African companies aren't really involved with them.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's going to come in and going to make this successful has to have control of the Stormers / Western Province, not just the commercial control.
Yeah.
And that's what the club's already saying. They won't, the Western Province Rugby Union saying they won't give up, that they can control the commercials, but they still control the Stormers' affairs. Yeah. So I don't see it going anywhere. I mean, if you look at CVC, we've invested $400 million into the Premiership 2 years ago. They're now the big investors into the Pro 14, $240 million. And they've are in discussions with the Six Nations for a $600 million investment.
And that's just for a share in this?
That's just a share. That's 27% in the Premiership and 28% in Pro 14, and just a small share of the Six Nations. So they are showing big intent to be involved in rugby, and all the reports in the Financial Times last week said this could be rugby's push towards private equity through the Northern Hemisphere, through what these guys are doing. So when you look at this one, this is very much Mickey Mouse when it comes to a singular Stormers thing. And we keep on hearing Stormers, someone wants to buy something for 100 million, then for 150 million. They constantly are...
Well, the Stormers to me would be undervalued at $6 million for controlling interest.
Completely, yeah. You know, but that's all this debt that they've got at the moment, and they're just fighting to pay players the next day. So I think people also come in and saying they're under siege, we'll pay you X amount and we want X amount in return. So, you know, the Stormers, like the Sharks, should be one of the top brands provincially / regionally in the world. And well,
they are. They're just not run that way.
Exactly. So I don't think anything will come from that. I think it's
so.
Also someone in the States showboating a bit,
yeah.
And it's got a few bucks to throw at something and maybe taking a flyer. But they won't get that control.
No, I fully agree. Don't believe the hype. Next up, Gatland. Should he be coaching the Lions?
Oh, yes. It was just incredible now. People are saying that knee-jerk reaction, eh?
Mm.
Is he the right guy?
We live in a world of Janet Jackson. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's just crazy. I mean, he's gone to New Zealand. He's 7 losses in a row. 5 of them have been, I think, 5 points or less. Again, the one against the Blues could have gone either way. It was a really good game of rugger. He's had a lot of injuries. He's made no excuses. He said that...
he's made a few.
Well, he's blamed the referee and the touch judges and his players for everything. No, he's not quite that bad.
Look, I'll never forget what he did for Wales. And Wales, he took Wales and was very successful there. So I'm eternally grateful for what he's done for Welsh rugby. But I am also someone that believes that you're judged on what you do recently. Yeah,
and look, he's a hell of a good coach. I mean, most people rate him up there as one of the best ever. I do, certainly, thinking what he did in 12 years with Wales, what he's done with the Lions in 2017 New Zealand, 2013 in Australia. He's definitely the right guy for the job. I think his focus has also shifted a bit towards the Lions. He was always going to leave the Chiefs at the end of the season for a year, focus entirely on the Lions, and then go back for the latter part of 2021 and then into 2022 and 2023. So
I don't think anybody saw 7 losses in a row for the Chiefs.
No, because I don't think anyone saw New Zealand Super Rugby competition. So I think in Super Rugby, I think he thought that he'd have the gap of knocking over a Queensland, knocking over a weak rebel side, coming to South Africa and knocking over a Lions side, that kind of thing. So
I see the Lions tour as being disastrous for Gatland. I fear a whitewash.
I'd be bloody happy if it was a whitewash.
Yeah, no, but I fear a whitewash, and I also think that you just can't lose 7 in a row. I mean, I'm sorry.
Look, I don't think he's become a bad coach, but it does obviously cast a little bit of doubt. But Eddie Jones has come out and he said, don't even worry about what's happening down there when it comes to him and the Lions players. He knows those players.
When did you start listening to Eddie Jones?
When he pitched up about 30 minutes before the World Cup final and gave us such a wonderful advantage. Talking of Eddie Jones, I see Clive Woodward and him have a big sparring match going on. Clive Woodward rightly also says, just while we just digress for a moment, he said there's never been a report back on the absolute humiliation of a 32-12 World Cup final defeat. And
what report back does he need?
Well, he basically that they lost the plot in that week. He says when you look at the press conference he saw 2 days beforehand with the English props just taking the piss out of everything. And he said, is that how England think this final's going to be? And they were relaxed, they were joking around, they were asking around.
They just beaten the Kiwis, they just slaughtered the Kiwis. So, I mean, that's the mentality, I think, that went in there. You know, who gives a toss about Clive Woodward? I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, look, I like, whenever he's having a go at Eddie, I like to kind of,
take
it. When Eddie has a go back at him, I like to kind of.
Yeah, it's good theatre.
It's very good theatre. But what he did say was, what was interesting, that 4 years of meticulous planning, and they arrived late for the World Cup final. They were 30 minutes late. South Africa was waiting for the toss for them. There was even a moment where the referee was saying, "What if England's not here? What happens?" And I think Sir Khaleesi was saying, "Well, then we play. We play against no one." So there's been good banter going on there, and I still think Gatland will pick a very strong squad. Will come to South Africa. The Lions will be very competitive, and they've got the perfect build-up. It's not that they're playing 3 games, they're going to a test, a midweek test. It's 5 games. And just as they did in New Zealand, by the time they get to that 5th game, he should have his test squad pretty much sussed. And it will be a combination of the best of England and Wales with a sprinkling of Ireland and maybe a Scotsman on the bench. But it'll be a tough series for South Africa. I'm confident that they will win the series. But Gatland also tends to know how to play against South Africa. And Wales were the one team that did trouble us. I thought they were our toughest game at the World Cup in terms of, I felt the New Zealand game, we were brilliant for those 40 minutes. We could still potentially come back and win it. But Wales, I was always thinking, shit, are we going to get through and actually win this game? And it took that wonderful penalty from Pollard at the end. So Gatland, I think it just adds to this. We can drum it up and say, you know, are you that good? Is your focus off? Or whatever the case may be. I wouldn't underestimate him. I think he'll come here all guns blazing with these Welsh lads and a very, very good nucleus of English players.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm convinced he'll come here. I'm convinced that the Lions will go ahead. But I have no doubt there's a few in the Lions organization that are looking and going, did we make the right choice? Look, what if he loses the last 3 or 4 games of the New Zealand season? Mr. O for July and August.
Well, then he'll have another record. Steve Hansen had that record for Wales, eh? Remember, I think he lost 12 in a row. Then they eventually bulleted him. Came to New Zealand assistant coach and then had that wonderful run. Graham Henry also started magnificently and then ended badly with Wales.
Yeah.
So they may just see it as a blip on the radar.
Maybe. Okay, here's the next topic. Should the Springboks be playing in the championship?
Yes, if we can get onto a rugby field in the next 3 weeks. I would say emphatically no if we can't. Because
I mean, the scales are weighted heavily in New Zealand's favour right now.
Everything's in New Zealand's favour. They're the only team that's playing in front of crowds. The intensity of their competition is outstanding. You look at that the Australian version. It's like watching 2 different games, and our guys still haven't taken contact. So you also don't want to go. You know, I said last week it's a great challenge to go over there and beat them twice in New Zealand, but we'd be so underdone. And
we'd get annihilated right now.
And that can't be good for anyone. So I think so much now depends on, can we get onto the field by the last week of August? Can we have those 5 matches at least for our players?
Well, the PSL's starting on the 8th of August.
Yeah, they're starting on the 8th. And the only thing there is that they're not a contact sport according to government regulations. So that's the whole thing of us taking contact at scrums and at the ruck and the mall. They get into those kind of things. But
aren't you fed up with this government?
I'm just fed up with this whole COVID thing, I must tell you. Into day 1, 2, 4.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just starting to think, come on, let's just beat this thing and get on with life. But yeah, I just think Jacques Nienaber has already said he's looking at, they want to play, but they want to be world champions when they go there, well prepared.
Well, too, you know what's going to happen. 2 losses to New Zealand, and dare I say a loss to Australia. And it will undo a lot of the good work from the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, then you're really starting on the back foot again because you've got no momentum going into 2021. And the first, I think we'll play one warm-up game against maybe a second-tier nation as a header, but then you've got the Lions straight up.
Well, then you've got to remember that Rassie had it perfect. He had Scotland and Georgia.
Yeah.
Those were the warm-ups. That was the perfect build-up.
The perfect launch pad for the Rugby Championship.
Yeah.
We knocked them over, world champions playing at home, huge momentum. New Zealand, we felt, was very vulnerable after that World Cup. We've said it consistently in the last couple of weeks. It's been a godsend for them to have an internal competition where they really have seen some new players come through. And we just wouldn't be battle-hardened. It would take a magnificent effort, even if we got onto the field in the next 4 weeks, to go there and actually be as competitive as we would have been at the World Cup. And I always say people have no memories, let alone good memories. And if we did take a loss, they wouldn't say, but it was unrealistic or unreasonable to expect anything from the Springbok side. It would be, there we go, we're slumping again, we're in a dip, which would be absolute nonsense. I just hope, but either way, there needs to be finality of sorts. If we're going to play, those decisions need to be made in the next 2-3 weeks. If we're not going to play and it's just a domestic competition, then just get on with that Currie Cup and play the home and away from now through till December and get the broadcast of those games and let New Zealand go and play 5 Bledisloe Cup games against Australia.
Yeah, and we need a Minister of Sports that understands that soccer is a contact sport, because I believe there's more injuries in soccer than there are in rugby.
And a hell of a lot more spitty.
Yes, absolutely.
And diving.
And diving. So, I don't understand that. If you're right, if South Africa is not out on the field in August, I would cancel the tour overseas.
Yeah, and I think that what they may look at is then say there wouldn't be a rugby championship with the logistics of getting Argentina there as well and South Africa, and there would be 5 Bledisloe Cup games against Australia. We'd enjoy the first 2. No one would care about the last 3, but it would be games for the broadcaster, and then we have a proper domestic competition here that runs through to near the end of the year. Guys can then go into a proper pre-season for whatever competitions we're going to be playing in next year and actually get prepared, because the only thing that really matters at the moment is going to be the Lions series. Get that one out of the way. The Rugby Championship then follows. Yeah.
So to wrap, the offer from this American, bit showboating rather than any gravitas.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Gatland should be coaching the Lions.
I do believe so.
I'm not convinced. And we should be playing in the championship if we can get onto the field in August. If not, then
our own domestic competition. 8 teams, home and away, get some rugger going. And also we have that complication of we've got players playing in the Northern Hemisphere, 5 or 6 very good players who will be integral to that Springbok selection. There could be complications with getting them over to New Zealand to be part of a rugby championship in that kind of international window / club window. So at the moment, everything's loaded against us, and we need to make decisions that are in the best interest of South African rugby, not necessarily Southern Hemisphere rugby.
Agree. So there we sorted it out.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.